Welcome back to the TradNurse podcast. This is episode 22. It is January 28th, 2026, and nursing has been in the news again because of the Minnesota ICE raids and the tragic loss of a ICU nurse, Alex Preddy. Rest in peace. Very tragic situation. However, what I want to talk about today is how did we get here? How have nurses become so radicalized? I noticed it in teachers a long time ago. I'm like, oh my God, every single teacher is a whack job. And trust me, there are good ones, but like they promote all the things. Transgender, abortions, the vaccines, they were supportive of the masking. And so I didn't realize how radicalized nurses have become. They are whack jobs. And it stems from their moral injury. And moral injury is when you are being told to believe something against your values and belief system. And at one time, nurses were mostly Christian, more conservative based, but over the years, it has changed. So we're going to dive deep into that topic. So welcome back. I've got some new merch. I'm very heavily promoting my podcast where we cut through the noise and just talk, real nursing talk, patient care, professional integrity, and calling out the nonsense that's actually destroying our profession. So I'm your host, Christine, and now we're going to dive into radicalization of nurses and how did nurses get here? The people who are supposed to be focused on healing, compassion, and staying out of the culture wars. How did they become so damn radicalized? And look, nursing has always had a caring and patient advocacy side. That is still there, and we do fight for our patients. We do push back on unsafe staffing, and we do demand better pay. But lately, it has gone off the rails into full-blown activism. And the anti-ICE hysteria it's just a Trump meltdown, more derangement syndrome because it's coming from Trump. But we need to remind everyone, Obama did deportations, and you could argue he actually deported more people than Trump, although Trump's only been in office for 1 year. But when you see nurses' rhetoric online, it's like they're protesting themselves. And then when you look at the posts that nursing professional organizations like the ANA and the nursing unions, the National Nurses United is the biggest nursing union, the rhetoric that they're putting out, especially around this tragic death of this ICU nurse, Alex Preddy, they're saying that he acted in good faith, and he very well may have. But let's just back off on that for a minute. Let's start with the American Nurses Association, the ANA, and their recent statement on the death of registered nurse Alex Preddy in Minneapolis back on the 24th of January, 2026. They issued this. The American Nurses Association is deeply disturbed and saddened to learn of the death of Alex Preddy, a registered nurse. The ANA condemns violence in our communities. 1 in 4 nurses already experiences workplace violence. Let's pause here. Do you see how they are already trying to justify this as a workplace violence incident? This did not happen at his workplace. You are not allowed to have a gun in the hospital, period. As incidents with federal law enforcement continue to rise, we are deeply concerned for the safety of nurses. They call for transparency and accountability. Sure. But notice how they frame federal law enforcement, ICE, Border Patrol, as a rising threat to nurses' safety, both on and off the job. This comes right after Alex Preddy, an ICU nurse, was fatally shot by a federal agent, during which reports describe as a confrontation. And details are still emerging, but the ANA jumps straight to implying systemic danger from immigration law enforcement. That's federal agents. And this isn't isolated. Remember Renee Good? She was shot by an ICE agent earlier in January in Minneapolis. And this narrative is building. What they painted as our federal agents are out there hunting nurses or other people, and it's inflammatory. It's one-sided, and it pulls the entire profession into a political fight instead of sticking to evidence-based advocacy. Basically, Alex Preddy was not working as an ICU VA nurse, and you're not, like I said, allowed to have a gun at work. So he had a loaded weapon and got in a kerfuffle with agents doing an operation. These are all facts. It looks like he did not disclose that he had a weapon. Otherwise, he would have had his hands up and probably walked away and not gotten shot. But regardless, I am a nurse. I am pro 2A, and I know you do not walk onto a scene with any law enforcement agent or police and not advise them that you're carrying. Right off, hands up, I have a weapon, you show it to them, and they take it from there. But you don't get into a conflict with them. That's common sense. If you are a nurse, you should have that common sense. But there are reports coming out that he was involved in anti-ICE activity. So that will all have to be dealt with by law enforcement. And your activity outside of the hospital is you are free to do what you want, but if you are engaging in illegal activity, that should not be promoted. So the American Nurses Association, the American Medical Association, the World Health Organization, the CDC, they have all been promoting a radicalized version of healthcare. They push the vaccines, they push gender affirming care, they push abortion rights, they push assisted suicide, the opioids, the psych, and it's mandated protocols. And if you want to be successful in your job, you just follow the rules. So the ANA has put out that statement. They've done this in the past. They say they're not political, but yet when it comes to immigration, they have this human rights. All people deserve health care, whether they're immigrants or criminals or whatever. But when you hone in on them and you ask them, so it's okay for a criminal to get health care, but my child who needs this same level of health care can't get it because our ERs are filled with immigrants and we are being taxed because someone has to pay for their health care. But when you zero down on them, they back off. But it's all in their framing. It's framed in socialist words. So they're trying to paint Alex Preddy like a hero, just like they did George Floyd. And this is what they do. So that's one observation. Now let's discuss hospital executives. So the AHA, the American Hospital Association, very similar. It's another organization, another layer of bureaucracy that tells the hospitals and the staff what to do. I'm going to read this because I found this really disturbing. The so-called leadership class that's supposed to manage hospitals professionally, instead they put posts like this on like LinkedIn and other social media. So here's an example from one hospital executive, and I won't mention names, but it's real. I know this person. I cannot stay distracted by my career and my cats and my kayak. Personally, I'd say the ICE approach must stop. Even the NRA has objected. America must reset. I cannot hide at work or in the wilds while mothers are shot in the face for driving, while children are captured for living, and while nurses are shot dead for lawfully carrying. Not lawfully. They continue claiming the government has taken away the First, the Second, and the Fourth Amendment, even for illegals. Quoting MLK, they love to quote MLK, about injustice, anywhere being a threat everywhere, and ending with, we must reset. It's on us, it's on me. Today, I'll try harder. Okay. Wow, that was deep. He was talking about his cats and his kayak. I know where he lives. That lake is frozen. So these are distractions for you. He wants to sound like he cares, but it's virtue signaling. And it's what these people do. And they do it on social media. They do it to your face. They do it at work. They're like, yeah, I'll take care of that. They don't ever take care of it. And then there's about this constitutional crisis is his peak executive productivity is what he needs to worry about today is solve that Second Amendment and that Fourth Amendment. And this isn't leadership. This is performative arts, activism from people who should be focused on budgets, staffing ratios, and actual patient outcomes. Instead, they're channeling their inner revolution while hiding behind their privileged desks. And so your First, your Second, and your Fourth Amendments are being taken away. I actually have some of his posts during COVID. This is the same executive who silenced nurses on social media during COVID. First Amendment. As for your Second Amendment, conceal and carry does not mean taking a gun to a protest and then approaching law enforcement, concealing your weapon. So the right to bear arms means Americans do not have a constitutional right to impede law enforcement operations. People understand that concealed carry means you must inform law enforcement first with your hands up that you're carrying and then go from there. Hospital organizations are notorious for being left-leaning and they are misguided. And it stems from your nurses association like the ANA, AMA, which is the American Medical Association, issuing statements affirming that Alex has a duty to care for all patients, including the most vulnerable, regardless of their background or immigration status. So he is supposed to be out there on his day off with his gun, protecting patients. I don't know how he knows who's a patient or not, because they're all out there. So the ANA also states that the Code of Ethics for Nurses, provision 9.3 to be specific, which states it is the shared responsibility of all people and nurses, in particular, to articulate and advance the notions of good health within a society. Nursing has a vision for a good society that arises from the values at the core of the profession. A good society is one that treats everyone with respect and dignity, balances justice and compassion, and regards humanity without hierarchy. Nursing strives to create and maintain a good society that supports the opportunity for its members to coexist and flourish. The Minnesota Nurses Association cited the actions of Alex Preddy as aligning with the ANA Code of Ethics. The incident, Alex Preddy, a VA ICU nurse on January 24, 2026, while protecting a person during an operation with law enforcement and ICE in Minneapolis. They state his actions were acting as an advocate for patients. And let me remind Preddy, put his body in front of ICE agents with a gun. Nurses do not have a duty to get involved to impede operations of law enforcement. And for instance, if my job was as an RN nurse in the ICU, I don't go home with the patient to protect them from illegal activities in their community. That is above and beyond my job. That is not my duty. And it's not any of our jobs as nurses to go out and be saviors for our patients, especially if they're committing illegal activity. So that is called gaslighting on the part of the ANA to suggest Alex Preddy acted as a nurse in an advocate role. He acted more like a terrorist with a gun to impede law enforcement. But I am not taking a side because this all has to be. So these nurses organization promote WHO and principles of we all must act for the greater good and we all must do what the world wants us to do. It's not about God. It's about the UN and the WHO and Big Pharma. So, and then we have the nursing unions. Nursing unions are becoming very popular. I'm not anti-nursing union because I do see nurses are getting better pay. They're actually getting staffing ratios, which are good things. However, they are just band-aids. The mandates and the forced vaccinations, all the other things that you disagree with, maybe as a Christian or conservative, gender-affirming care, abortion, reproductive care, psychiatric drugs, opiates. Really, unions are not going to help you in that situation. So, National Nurses United is the biggest nursing union out there, and they called it cold blood murder, that Alex was shot in cold blooded murder. And they're not subtle about it. They put it all online in response to the Department of Labor social media posts with things like one homeland, one people, one heritage, meant to celebrate American workers. And the executive director of the National Nurses Union straight up called it fascist propaganda. So they accused the Trump administration of rhetorical shift towards white supremacy, comparing it to Nazi slogans, says it's part of a broader fascist agenda to harm working people. The union leaders tied it to violence, and like the Minneapolis gun shootings, those incidents that recently happened, they're claiming it's all connected. So, look, criticizing policy is one thing, but equating standard patriotic messaging, even if you disagree with the wording or the candidate or the president, to literal Nazism, that's not reasoned debate. And that's radical escalation. And when your union is out there throwing around fascist regime labels, it normalizes extreme rhetoric for the rank and file nurses. And suddenly, every disagreement becomes a moral crusade. Every conservative policy is white supremacy, and nurses become another front in the culture war. We saw this with COVID. Stay 6 feet apart, get your shots, wear your mask. When did nurses become lockstep? They're not thinking for themselves anymore. They're thinking of, oh, how do I fit into this? I want to keep my job, so I better make a post about Alex Preddy. Just because you're an ICU nurse working for the VA doesn't necessarily mean you're a wholesome person and doing Christian work in the background. But I'm sad for his family and for his soul. And I have said some prayers for him. So that brings us for the larger Minnesota nursing community and nurses everywhere. We are saddened for your loss. I am sorry that you are hurting. This is horrible. And a few more thoughts on this, maybe when you're thinking about what you're going to put out there and the levels of hierarchy that are framing how you think about the world. One, is it focused on God, or is it more focused on a one world thought process coming down from the World Health Organization and the CDC and AMA and ANA? You don't have to join those organizations. And if you're feeling conflicted at your work, there are things you can do to not be in that sort of type of godless nursing. They are working to radicalize nurses. We see it clearly in this tragic situation, the way nurses have responded. It's like lockstep, just not using your brain, just saying what you think people want you to say. And this is what teachers do too, especially during COVID. I feel like nursing, we're at an all-time low, especially since COVID. Everything that is coming out with COVID now was an overreach. The guidelines, using masks, going into the same room and using your N95 for like months or even, longer than that. The breathing in your own CO2, the chemicals from the masks, the germs of wearing your gloves everywhere, and then standing 6 feet apart and watching our children play sports in masks. If you took part in that, yes, you are part of the problem. You could always say no to things that you don't believe in. Social media echo chambers. Nurses are scrolling on social media just like everyone else. And one viral post about injustice, and then suddenly everyone's an activist. Professional organizations are chasing relevance. The ANA and the unions see membership decline, and so they seek to appear woke and to appear relevant, especially to younger nurses who are looking to fit in. Burnout and displacement. Nursing is brutal right now. It's short-staffed. The patients are violent. The morale is low. It's easier to rage against the system, like Trump, ICE, whatever it is that you want to get worked up because it feels good. Like you feel like you're doing something. Like Alex felt good. He was helping society. And that's just a displacement of what's really going on is probably more like a moral injury. You're not really thinking things through and you're not allowing your true core beliefs. I'm a Christian, I'm a Catholic. And so my beliefs come from there. I have a conscience. I don't get involved in other people's dramas and circus. A lot of what we're seeing right now is displacement and complete burnout. And then the ideological capture. A lot of nursing education and leadership leans very heavily left. So dissenting views get labeled problematic, and the loudest voice dominates, especially in a organization. You could lose your job. You may not get those shifts. And so that's up to you. You can work for other organizations or you can stay working in that system. And again, if you don't speak up, you're part of the problem. And then the distraction from the actual condemnation of human dignity, like giving ICE agents are doing their job, taking illegal immigrants off the streets because there are laws to come into this country and some of them are actually committing crimes. So dealing with that but instead what you're saying is, oh, everyone has rights. You don't have a right to come into our country, and certainly don't have a right to come into our country and then commit fraud and crimes. So where is this commitment to human dignity? It's to the immigrants. It's to this nurse who was acting on behalf of the immigrants, but he wasn't acting on behalf of the people that want to live peacefully, the American citizens that want to live peacefully. So you're getting distracted. That's not a good place to be. The results, nurses who used to focus on evidence-based practice, compassionate, actual patient care, are now spending energy on political statements that alienate half the country, including patients, colleagues, and yes, taxpayers who fund healthcare. So we need to get back to basics, healing patients, advocating for safe conditions, staying professional on and out of work, not playing revolutionary on company time. If it was your day off, I guess you can do that. So what do you think? Have you seen this radicalization in your hospital? Drop a comment. Contact me on X or social media at TradNurse. I'd love to hear your stories, the sane ones, the eye-rolling ones. But until next time, stay focused on the bedside and stay safe. And if you need, get some merch. It's my new hat. Signing off.